The thing is, I think most people have about the same level of self-control as baby sea turtle. And I get that because, like, when sea turtles hatch on the beach, their natural instinct is to go to the brightest light source, which would normally be the moon, because that's where the water is. They're supposed to go into the ocean. But when they're like headlights and neon signs from like when humans have made the boardwalk and encroached on their habitat, made brighter lights that brought brighter lights, the turtles get confused. So they just go towards the brightest light source, and most people, yeah, they're always on their phones. They love their phones. Like you can really see with millennials when they spend so much time on their phones. Like they're obsessed with social media. The only social media I do is Facebook, which I'm glad. I only use it to like stay in touch with groups of minority groups I'm part with that otherwise I would have no contact with. Um, so yeah, most people are just attracted to the brightest light source, which is their phone. They don't really think about it. They just, I don't know, you just gravitate towards whatever's most appealing. And I guess I should make a disclaimer at the beginning of this that I think most people don't have free will. Some people, like, it exists. Free will exists in the world, but it's only utilized by a small percentage of people, and those people most of the time know. And yeah, I think just like I've heard so many stories about things like in ancient India, and everyone was vegan because that's just how humans are supposed to eat. Um, there were only three things people died from. One was old age. The other two were probably poisoning, and whether it be from like snake bite, a mushroom, or some putting like cyanide in your food, or and the other one was probably doing something stupid like jumping off a cliff or trying to bungee jump, but your the vine you tied to your leg broke. So yeah, the thing about free will is if you know about the chakras, like me, like if you meditate as much as me, you'll notice that a lot of people's behavior is just turned by I guess their glands that are most active. I mean, that's what chakra really means. It's wheel of destiny. Because it determines the way your whole life is, the way your brain plans out your life. So the reason I mentioned that story about ancient India was because it also said the untouchables, when they started eating meat, like the dead bodies of animals, they had 70 diseases to the things people died from. So, I mean, obviously, eating animals causes a lot of diseases, so I don't know why people still do it, but, yeah, the untouchables, and when you meditate as much as me, you'll notice things like, I mean, I feel a lot of ancient peoples throughout history, well, when the things you see when you meditate probably determined largely by the things you eat, because and the reason these cultures were just slightly different, I mean, they were pretty similar with I don't know, they talked about the pyramids. All cultures had pyramids. All cultures had a term for like mermaid, and what some people call the Yeti or Abominable Snowman. Bigfoot varies continent to continent. Just depending on the things you eat influences what you see when you meditate, I feel. And Yeah, so a lot of people didn't come up with this stuff themselves, just what they happen to see when they meditate. So, no, you see, I think free will is a complicated thing because there's also determinism, the scientific law of, I don't know if it's a law, but scientific principle of determinism says that every action is determined by a previous action, which does ring true for the most part, not totally. You know, I've read Sam Harris's Free Will, where, yeah, he spends the whole time saying that, explaining that it is determinism, where every action is determined by pre-action. And, like, when I brought him to my brother, just read that book, and you'll understand why I don't believe in free will. He said, but what if I choose not to read that book? Well, no, that was predetermined by the action of me wanting you to read that book and then you wanting to defy me because you don't like me. And the reason I brought up this book is because determinism, I really seen that, like, culture is a thin veneer of familiarity. I've watched a lot of Adam Ruins Everything episodes where it's like that one about fine art where he says that the type of art people like is just determined by how familiar it is. That's all it is. It's like your brain starts to like things more the more you see them. And it ended in the conclusion that culture is a thin veneer of familiarity. So you can see all these people from around the world, it's just their whole personality is determined by just how they grow up. Most things are determined by how you're raised. It's like, I'm sure a lot of people, especially with the internet now, they know that there are these other cultures all the way around the world in, like, I don't know, Australia, or there's Outback Australia and then European Australia. And there's China and Japan, and there are people who, like, do a lot of Tai Chi and martial arts. But if you grow up in, like, the city, you just weren't exposed to those things, so it's like, it's all about the exposure, and if you're just never exposed to those things, you just it never registers. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people only know about certain hot issues, like, if you didn't know Nestle, the Nestle Corporation, you should definitely stop supporting them because they use child slave labor in their cocoa production. See, the cocoa industry is not good. There's a lot of slavery in it, child labor, and yeah, little pay, long hours. They barely get fed enough, and yeah, it shows if you read Jason Liu's book, Hyperworlds, Underworlds, it's just a collection of articles about how there's one about Nestle, child labor, and a lot of people just don't know about this stuff. They don't pay attention to the companies they're supporting, and I think you definitely should. And I mean, a lot of people say they went vegan just because they saw a documentary. So that's the main difference. Just, you happen to have this event that happens in your life. Like, reading a certain book like this would change your whole perspective. Watching a documentary, or me, I went to a Tai Chi class, so I was curious. Being or your family took you on a trip to Hawaii and you get really into the Hawaiian culture or whatever. So determinism is the ruling factor. Yeah, it's mostly determined. I realize that most people are, especially like poor people who live in maybe third world countries, second world countries, they don't always have a choice because, meanwhile, one in those third world countries, we've bombed a lot of, or America has bombed a lot of their like forms of entertainment, or their culture is just centered around with how they grow up. Like maybe that's why they have, what was it? Uh, in the Middle East, the laws where they like stone women because they got raped, or I don't know, really stupid things. Yeah, a lot of people, maybe they're just trying to make it by. They don't have, I guess, that many choices because their life is limited. Yeah, limiting factors. Like, I learned in human development class about exosystems and microsystems. I forgot what other systems, but so they're things that determine your life that are outside your control, like your religion, or if you grew up in like the church, or going to whatever mosque, or if your family brought you up in like you made regular visits to like Shambhala, a like a business I know around here is called Shambhala, that it's all about meditation. Like they specialize in meditation. Hindus who go there and meditate. So if you grew up with that, you see that as just a normal part of life. But then you meet other people who didn't grow up with it, and it's like, you don't meditate? What the hell's wrong with you? I guess that's all I want to say about free will. I don't know, leave your comments. What do you think? It's definitely something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. I don't see free will working out. It's determinism is, at least in a society that's right now. Maybe in the future people will have it because things will change. I mean, I consider the 21st century the mental health revolution, but yeah, so something to think about, guys. Okay, love you. Stay creative. Keep thinking outside the box. Do Tai Chi or Taekwondo or whatever martial arts every day. Energy work. You need an energy work, definitely. Meditate. Eat high vibrational foods, like cucumbers. Cucumbers have the highest work on it. Another thing I want to say about free will. I just learned today that back in the Salem witch trials, or around that time in Salem, Massachusetts, they had a lot of rye bread in their diet, and there's this type of mushroom, fungus, that produces lysergic acid, better known as LSD, and it grows on the rye. So there was probably some of the fungus that got into their diet, which, because it causes the things like spasms and I don't know, just anxiety, or I don't know, it causes all those kind of similar things towards what considered a person bewitched in that Salem, back in Salem. Yeah, determinism. Every action is determined by another previous action by